come up on my Facebook.
It'll come up on your Facebook.
Cool.
Mic check 1 2. Mic check. Mic check. Facebook check.
Check.
Did you know you can now go live on LinkedIn, Josh?
I did not.
Yes, we need to figure this out. Offices at China Hall on a Wednesday afternoon, beautiful Wednesday afternoon, broadcasting from the second level of the 220 First Avenue building. The once red, now brick, white brick building. Excited to be here. Excited to, I can say officially, this last week I went to this wonderful event. If you can see the flyer right here. I went to this wonderful event. It's called ROCKchester.
Well, which one? There was a lot of them.
Well, I went just one day. I went Saturday. It was
you
a
went to
3-day
every
event.
show.
That's the best day to go to, I think.
Was it?
I think that
Okay.
was the best day.
It was my first time going. ROCKchester, version number 4, episode number 4.
Episode 4. Yep. Return of the Goose.
Return of the Goose, not to be confused with Return of the Robin, the hockey, the hockey one. So yes, we are excited. We are here with the founder of ROCKchester.
Good to be here.
What's your name?
Dylan Hilliker.
Dylan, nice to meet you, man.
Nice to meet you.
First time meeting you. I've literally tweeted from a couple different places and watched from afar for a few years.
Yep.
And you were gracious enough to come up and just join the podcast.
Yeah,
no
thank you
asked.
for putting us over the top and getting Wyatt to shotgun that LaCroix.
Yes.
That was important.
Yeah. So it was an Instagram live,
Yep.
I think through yours or through actually the ROCKchester.
It was through the ROCKchester one, I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
And you said you had 2 early Goose tickets left.
Yep.
And if someone would buy them, that Wyatt would shotgun a LaCroix.
Mm-hmm.
So I stepped up to the plate.
Stepped up, hit out of the park.
Is that video still there? I want to see it.
I sent it to you afterwards.
I have a screen recording
I want
of
to see it. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll post it.
Yeah,
for
because
sure.
I then did a screen record of it. Because
Yeah.
you said someone do it, and then I sent it to you on Google Drive after the fact.
That was great.
That was great.
Fantastic.
So
moment.
besides shotgunning LaCroix, what goes into Rochester Fest? Or it's not even Fest. It's funny. Everybody calls it Fest.
Yeah, I know. That's like the Instagram tag, and we've been trying to get at Rochester for so long because people just keep on calling it Rochester Fest. I mean, that's fine. Like I've kind of like
that's why I typed it on Google. I couldn't find it. I'm like, Bucky, why isn't it coming up?
I've gotten to the point where I'm just like, yeah, whatever. Like you can call it Rochester Fest or Rochester Festival or whatever you want to call it. But yeah, I mean, like the thing that like really goes into it. I mean, it's not as like glamorous as the weekend makes it seem. It's just a lot of spreadsheets and a lot of emails. And what is really rewarding is getting to create relationships with artists that we work with, and getting to maybe talk to some bands that you wouldn't normally talk to. I mean, Early Eyes was kind of a shot in the dark for us on last year, and we got them as a headliner, and now they're like some of my really good friends. So it's kind of crazy to.
And where is Early Eyes from? What is it?
They're from Minneapolis.
Okay.
So yeah, and they've headlined the festival for the past 2 years, and I'm sure were you there for them?
I think so. Yes.
Yeah, they were the last act. Super crazy good stuff. But yeah, it's cool to like. Be able to see what's going on in like both the Rochester and the Minneapolis scene, as well as people who just kind of like apply. It's an open call for like applicants basically, and so I mean like we get applicants from all over. Our one of our bands for night 1 came all the way from Ann Arbor, Michigan. So like it's kind of crazy how widespread this festival has become in terms of like getting talent, not only just from Rochester, but from all around the Midwest.
So for somebody that has never even heard of it or never been to the event, like what would you explain to them as what they'll see when they go to the event for the very first time?
I like to think it's like something that they wouldn't ever see in Rochester before, I think like what I'm trying to bring with this is like, if you like to see local music, if you're a fan of like My Town shows, or if you're a fan of the Canvas and Chardonnay shows, like they all partner with us to put on this programming. So it's like one of those things where like we focus on youth artists, of course, but it's also like the best of the best that's going on in Minnesota right now, you know. So I think for people who haven't been to it, it's just a showcase of all the talent that not only like the greater Midwest has, but also that just Rochester in general has. Like, there are a lot of kids in Rochester that are doing some amazing things. I think that goes unnoticed sometimes.
Sure.
And so we're really trying to put a spotlight on that.
So do most of the bands, are they reaching out to you, or do you have to do much reaching out to other bands to see if they come in?
Yeah, so like at first, like the first couple of years, it was a lot of like, you know, asking people to come and play the festival and trying to like find bands basically, because like I had no, you know, idea of the Minneapolis scene or like anywhere around. I was just kind of like very like Rochester centric as a musician, because that's the only place I'd ever played.
And how old were you on the first version?
16. Yeah.
That's
so
when you threw the
that's
first
nuts.
Rochester?
Mhm.
Sweet. Good
Yeah,
for you.
16, and it was at the Wicked Moose.
Yes.
Back in yeah.
Oh,
back
I
in the
remember
day.
it now. I do.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. But that one was crazy because like just the sheer amount of talent that we had, like between like the two, I think it was like I was a junior in high school and the seniors in high school, like those two classes were just insane. Like we had bands like Fauna and Flora and like Project Substitute, which was like this incredible jazz group that you know, kids from like Lourdes and Mayo had formed together. They just played like jazz standards, but like now one of them is like going to school in New Orleans for jazz composition, Marius Toussaint. And then Fauna and Flora is now not active anymore, but it was like one of my favorite Rochester groups, and it all started from that little like 1 year, like one day. I think we only had like 6 or 7 acts, so it's kind of crazy. Oh, and Vansire was like, they had like one of their first live shows at our festival, and now they're like, you know, close to 1 million monthly listeners on Spotify. And
Wow.
like, they had one single out. I didn't even know who they were. I slotted them at like the 3 p.m. slot on the day, and they just kind of blew me away. And then they ended up headlining the festival next year, and we've been trying to get them back ever since. You know?
Yeah.
So,
and where they're like touring, or what are they doing? They're like all over?
Yeah, they're kind of all over. Josh goes to Oberlin College in Ohio, and then Sam is up at the cities in the Twin Cities. And I think his brother Isaac is out in Colorado, maybe Montana, something like that. But they're touring this summer, and I think they play at 7th Street in August or so. But yeah, it's cool to see how bands like that have like grown, and even bands that we've met along the way, like Early Eyes and those guys, like have really. It's like kind of crazy to see what a year's difference is. Yeah, it's like we're growing up as a family together, so it's really cool.
And now it's a 3-day event. It's no longer just the 1 day.
Yeah, it's a 3-day event. We're this year was kind of, well, I mean, every year is an experiment, so this year was even more so of an experiment, trying out the 3-day format. I'm not sure if we'll keep it, but you know, it's one of those things where like, right after a festival, you always have these crazy ideas swirling in your brain for next year and everything. So, but yeah, we really enjoyed having all those events and getting all the people out. We had 32 acts this year and 22 visual artists. So, yeah, we were crazy stacked. Explain
a little bit about the main stage, side stage, like what went into that. Have you done that before? What that is?
Yeah, so we did that last year. I had the idea because one of the things from years prior, it was always like really weird to have just like one band play and then there'd be this like lull, and we wanted to keep the energy up, but not to the point where we're like overwhelming people. Like it's just like band after band after band, and everyone has to like sit through that and get fatigue and all that stuff. Like ear fatigue is one of those things. It's like I'm trying to stay away from. But you know, so we decided on the side stage, And it was perfect at the Civic Theater because they have that lobby stage already like set up, ready to go. So we just brought in a PA and like it was pretty easy. But yeah, so we kind of did the main stage as like the bands, and then the side stage was like solo artists and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, that's the main idea. And the main idea was just to like not have that lull, just to keep the music going and all that stuff.
So Reed Bruns has commented. He said, "Last I knew, Rochester used to be a guitar lesson studio above WT Lighting." I don't know what that is.
I don't.
There might have been a company at one point.
Yeah,
right?
there might have been. I mean, the domain, like the Rochester domain, was actually like I think Avalon Music's domain for a little bit.
Was it really?
Yeah. And so I got an
cool.
email from him, and he was like, "What's this Rochester festival?" I'm like, "Oh yeah, it's just this festival." And he was like, "All right, that's chill." Like, but I was worried that we were gonna have a problem.
You're like, dude,
for
I'm
a second.
16 and I'm like in high school right now. Can I message you after class?
Right. Yeah.
Like-
exactly. Yeah. Yeah. I think that was one of the, like looking back on it, it was like so funny to like. I think it was more of like, I think the reason why we were able to get started, but like it was kind of like a novelty thing at first, and I kind of have grown to accept that it is kind of like a novelty thing still. But like I think the more people have seen what it's transformed into, the more people are willing to, you know, kind of accept this as like a real legit thing.
Yeah.
My pet peeve, and I've been talking about this for a while, is like there are some people that do it and I'm like, okay, that's fine, like you're like a father figure, but like when like people call me bud and stuff, and I'm like, I'm 20, dude, like and like I'm like running this festival and like you're still calling me bud, and it's just like one of those things that I get really like you know, sideways about. But like it's just the territory. Like when you start a festival when you're 16, you never quite you have to grow out of it. Yeah,
right.
Yeah, eventually.
Have you done anything else besides this festival since you've been 16?
Yeah, exactly.
Is this
yeah,
your only full-time
is this your
job?
only job? Like, what are you doing for your life?
Yeah.
You know, and I think it just like goes to show like the Midwest isn't like super like forward on the whole arts thing. You know, like I think most people, you know, around here are very like blue collar, very like working class, and you know might not have time to have those different pursuits. But I think just like letting people see that it's something that everyone can enjoy has been super rewarding too. It's like it's really funny because like, you know, some of the band's parents, they're like, you know, working class, like, you know, they go out and like fish on the weekends, and then they come out to a music festival, they have no idea what they're doing and like
What to expect,
what to
right?
expect, but they always end up enjoying it, which is cool. It's cool to see.
Well, and I would say, you know, on the music topic or artist topic, just here in the Midwest or Rochester focus is like, you know, my family specifically, like we didn't have anything in our house related to it. Don't get me wrong, we listened to music, but there wasn't much music besides that. You know.
Yeah, and I think like I grew up in Chapel Hill, North Carolina. So like I spent my first 10 years of my life there, and that's kind of where I started taking lessons. My parents put us in like guitar lessons and drum lessons like really early. So I'd been playing drums since I was 8. And it's just been kind of like one of those things where it just stuck with me, and something about it just made me like gravitate towards it. And so even though I was playing sports, I was always like seeing music as more of a priority, which is cool. And it's cool to see some kids like one of the guys in my band, Lucas, was like full-time like football, baseball player at Mayo High School, and then he picked up guitar when he was a sophomore, and now he is better than all of us. So like it's just like it goes to show like
natural talent.
Yeah, and like the night one headliners, Gully Boys, they're from Minneapolis, but I think it goes to show like they didn't know how to play their instruments 3 years ago.
Wow.
And now
That's
they're
awesome.
like they like, you know, they had opening slots at the First Avenue main room, and like have been to South by Southwest and like playing all these gigs. So, you know, it's like one of those things where we want to encourage kids to like start bands and to really like, you know, think of music as a as it's something that can be rewarding. I
Right.
mean, like, I've been able to make, just recently I've been able to start actually making some money playing music. So it's always good. Like when you have something like that might not be like, or a career path, even though it could be for some, but even just to have that outlet has always been important for me.
I would think that the success stories of, like you already mentioned with episode 1 of
Yeah.
Rochester,
Mm-hmm.
of like being able to show other musicians that are in high school now of like, hey, you know this band? Oh yeah, their first performance was
Yeah.
here,
Yeah,
in some
exactly.
way. Like
Yeah.
Exactly.
that gets people, I would think, just energized to be
Yeah.
like, all right, I can do this.
Yeah, and especially we've been looking to bring in more high profile, acts. I think if we would have been at this point 4 years ago, I could see someone like a Hippocampus coming and headlining the festival. Like it wasn't like, 4 years ago, it wasn't like they were like huge by any means, but like, they were probably like 18 or so, like back then. And, so it's like, it's one of those things where it's like, we want to keep bringing in the best talent, and hopefully just like we build more relationships and get more bands that are really going out there and doing big things. But, yeah.
So do you have to pay to get in most of the events, or are there some free, some paid, or
Yeah.
how does that all work?
So the night one showcases, like the night showcases are the main like ticketed events.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's usually programming outside of that. So like this year we had a carpet booth session that Josh did video for. And that was like a $25 ticket, and it was like you got to see 5 bands and what a recording studio session would look like at Carpet Booth Studios. Their live room's incredible. But it was one of those things where like, it was $25. You get to see 5 bands record, and then, those songs will be up on Spotify, like, hopefully within the month. So you get to have, a snapshot of that, and there'll be videos up as well. So yeah, it was, like if you did everything for the whole weekend, even if you paid at the door, it would still, come out to like $65, I think, at the absolute most.
Okay.
So we're not asking for like 200, 300, like, some festivals do. It's a really reasonable ticket price for sure.
Now, how does like the pre-order stuff work? So we had talked about that a little bit, like, wanting more or just not taking off as much as like people just doing it at the door and stuff like that.
Yeah, so like Rochester has this problem where they don't buy advance tickets, and I think it's like a problem in any like kind of secondary or tertiary market for music. Like you have the Chicagos and New Yorks and the LAs where you're like, if there's a band that's big, that people are going to buy advance because there's too many people for them not to, like it's going to sell out, So it's one of those things where people are more likely to do that. But one of the ways that we work up to, being a city where bigger acts come in is through purchasing advance tickets. I intern for a company in Nashville right now that does artist management, and whenever they're deciding where to send their artists, because they have a role in like where the artists go, routing of tours and all that stuff, they, if they try out a market where pre-sales are low or pre-sales are, non-existent, they probably won't go back to that market. Like, so it's one of those things where like you either have to do really well and the artist has to really like it for them to come back, or you just have to be a pre-sale buyer, and that's like one of the things. So we do our tickets tiered. So like the early goose ones are the cheapest ones you can get. They're like a month after we announce the initial lineup, and then it moves to pre-sale and then door sales. So it just increases, gradually.
I would think that model has changed at all as your education has grown related to how things work.
It has changed, yeah for sure. Because like, I think I think like that's kind of what the festival industry is doing right now. The tiered tickets are really important to promoting pre-sales. If you give people the option of buying early and buying less expensive, usually they will. But yeah, so
I see a lot too with not just music festivals, but just like events in general, like how much hype big companies build with pre-sale stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's like all this hype built, and then they're dropping pre-sales, and then they're hitting it again, and they're like really pushing toward that.
Yeah. And I think one of the things about it is like, to give some insight, it's like it's not normal that by the time you're selling tickets, you're break even or in the black when you're budgeting for a festival. And that's for any festival. That's for your like Bonnaroos, Coachellas, everything. Like they usually don't turn a profit until they start selling pre-sale tickets, and luckily enough, like we were able to get some grant funding this year that helped us out.
Nice.
Like with the pre-sale tickets. But
is that the first year that happened?
That's the first year. We've gotten the Greater Rochester Arts and Cultural Trust grant for the past 2 years now. But this was the first time we got the CMAC grant, the legacy funding, which was great.
Nice.
And so like when you're building a festival, like you have to kind of like go incrementally. Like one of the big budget items for us is we pay all of our bands, so we have a set budget that we have for bands based on what we made last year, the funding that we have right now, and then usually that doesn't cover it all, so we're relying on ticket sales to get us over the top. So yeah, ticket sales are huge in terms of like making the festival keep happening, as well as all of our great sponsors and all of our grant funding and all that stuff. But yeah, it's like a little in the weeds, but like I think that's like an important thing to mention.
Probably like every year now that you go, you're building up more and more content to kind of hype up the next year's event.
Yeah, we
even
just
more than you could the year before.
We just got 391 pictures from our. So I'll be sharing that with the band. So if any of the bands are listening on our live stream, pictures are coming your way. So I'm really excited to see those. But yeah, the content is huge, and we had. Last year we did some like video series, and we did, we had just like tons of content. So yeah, it's really important to like push that kind of stuff. And one of the things that I always fall like, I don't know, I'm always guilty of is I don't keep pushing content as the year goes on, because I just like get engulfed in other things. But this year we'll have enough to post, more than one picture every day for the rest of the year until the next.
Yeah, and that's what I was just going to say is like, now is the time to schedule throughout the year, right?
Exactly.
I mean, you got it built up, and I don't work scheduling social media posts enough either, but I would think that it's...
Yeah, and that's one of those big things. One of my friends, because I have a bunch of friends who are, out working in the music business now, just like through university connections. And one of them introduced me to like, I don't know if you guys know Hootsuite.
Yeah.
Like, and that's just been like a breeze,
Yeah.
because we have that, like, we did that like 32 days of Rochester where we were basically counting down the days, and it was a band every single day. And I did it all in one day. I just like programmed all the posts, like scheduled them all, and then they just like came out, and it was so easy. So like, Hootsuite, good tool.
Do that more.
And then I think about, as you go throughout the year, being able to give some of those bands the spotlight once again on your social media, Instagram, do a takeover like I know you have done, and just be like, okay, give the fans, give those that came, a summary of what you're up to, and it's the middle of the year.
Yeah, for sure. And we try to stay active, like posting shows that our network are
smart.
doing, you know,
Yeah.
and posting tours and all that
Helping
stuff.
the community.
Yeah, because like really the idea of like the Goose Crew and like the idea of like Rochester in general is like we're building, you know, a family, like a network, a web. So
Yes.
like we want to support those artists who have come
flock.
before us.
You're building a flock.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. So that's like one of those things, you know. It's really fun to see, you know, bands get really cool tours, and like even bands like will sometimes reach out to me, and like I've done booking for my band and done booking for Why Not, one of the bands on there. So it's like always cool to like help bands out too that need it, because when they're in the network, you know, we treat them like family, you know.
In the flock.
In the
You
flock.
gotta get that terminology.
Yeah,
down.
yeah.
We got
really
a couple.
do.
We got a couple comments on Facebook. What are they?
We got quite a few actually.
Yes,
sweet.
thank you.
Rosie Skipper, she said, "Hey, big guy." That was probably when you were talking about the Bud thing or something like that.
Yeah. Hey, big guy.
Bree Colvin said, "This is awesome." Lucas Muskoff, hello, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Enzo
Enzo Vinhole.
Vinholi.
Oh yeah. Hey,
He said
Enzo.
Yeah.
he said he didn't make it to Rochester this year, but he had in past years.
Yeah, so Enzo is the bass player for Good Luck Finding Iris, who played last year, and their lead singer Mike played this year, and she is like one of the most incredible voices ever. Like Mike Coda is like an artist to be on the lookout for sure.
What night?
Wow.
What night were they?
She was night 2 side stage.
Got it.
Yeah,
Okay.
and she also did the carpet booth session, so her songs will be up. I'm really excited. She only has one song.
Oh
out
yeah,
right
I
now,
remember.
but
Yeah, her voice was.
her voice is
awesome.
incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was the one where like, cause I didn't have the headphones in there.
Yeah.
So like, but her singing, I was like, yep.
Yep,
that was
that's
really
it.
good.
Like, that's all you need. Yep, for sure.
It's funny you say that because here I am there for the first time, and I'm like watching these amazing, talented people, you know, do their thing, and I'm going side stage to main stage, and I'm like, so if I'm like in the music industry, do I know when I hear it? You know, that was going through my mind, like,
Yeah.
do I know? Like, they're all amazing to me, you know,
Yeah,
but I'm like,
yeah.
would I know that this person's on to the next level?
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know?
I think it's like one of those things where, you know, it's really hard, especially in the Midwest, because we're not like attached to a coast. We're not like any like, there's not a lot of music industry professionals that like really think about the Midwest. And I think that's one of the things that we're trying to, you know, focus on too, as well, is bringing out some people who scout talent and who are like, you know, I think that's one of the things that we'll probably try to start doing a little bit more next year, because there's so many incredibly talented musicians there. I mean, like Early Eyes is managed by a guy who is in the management arm of 30 Tigers in Nashville, and you know, there's been some swirlings of like stuff that they're doing, you know, and so really excited to see what happens in the future for those guys. But yeah, like the guy who manages them also managed Hippocampus, Lizzo, and managed Trampled by Turtles, or still does manage Trampled by Turtles. So he's like from New York, like the East Coast area, but has made his whole career off of Minnesota music, which is kind of crazy to think about, because like there's just that much talent there. And I think whenever someone like a music industry professional comes in here, they're always like bombarded, because people like see that they want to take their stuff to the next level and aren't really sure how to do it yet. So I think that's like one of the things that I'm super passionate about, is trying to get more people here that are working in the music industry, and trying to get more names from our festival out into the broader national. Yeah.
Rosie Skipper's asking, any word on the headliners for next year?
Ah, man. Well, okay. Well, I'll throw out a few that I want. I want Vansire again. I want, if Vansire's listening to this, I want you.
Come join the flock.
Yeah,
Vance.
come join the flock. And they played the first 2 years, and we'd really like to have them back. Dizzy Fay was one of the artists this year that I've been looking at, and I really have loved the singles that she's put out. I'm trying to think of what else. Young Gravy was in town while the festival was happening.
Where were you, Young Gravy?
I know we were trying to get him to come through, but
we were making great mashed potatoes, and you didn't show up.
I
dude.
I know.
Gosh.
But yeah, they're like a couple bands that I've had my eyes set on for a while. So we'll see how it all shakes out next year. But hopefully it'll be bigger and better.
There you go. Are you going to be able to make a living in the music industry?
That's I get asked that question a lot. Yep, and I think that's like one
By your parents, or are your parents just over it?
By my parents, by other people's parents.
That their kids are like looking up to you, like,
right.
Dylan's doing it, like, why can't I do it?
Right. And one of the things that I say to people is like, the music industry isn't just about the musician anymore. Like, it's about the venue owner, the manager, promoters, booking people. Graphic design is huge. So there are, a wide variety of skilled jobs in the music industry for people who don't even have to have a musical background. And so I've been pushing, like some of the kids that have came through the festival, like, you can get a job doing stuff in the music industry, and you can work for any number of companies doing music related stuff. So I've never personally had like any doubt about myself being able to make a career in the music industry, because I think it's just one of those things where it is a very connections based thing. And I know a lot of people who love and support me in the music industry, and I know a lot of people who are passionate about what we're doing. So I don't have any doubts about it. I think everyone should learn about the music industry and like really come to appreciate it for the big web it is. The flock. Exactly.
The flock.
The large flock.
Yeah.
Do you know
That'll be the post for next year. Join the flock.
Yeah. Honestly, we're doing some good brainstorming here. I might take some of these ideas.
Yeah, by the way, your branding this year is on point. Like, shout out to whoever helped with that.
Andy Furness is our graphic designer. He did all the branding. Did everything for the festival.
Everything.
So Andy
it was all the way from the PowerPoint, if you will, that was up on the wall, to the shirts. The shirts were sick.
Yeah.
The shirts were awesome.
I had the idea in my sleep, and I woke up at like 3:30 a.m. and I was like, we have to do this. And I got so we had been talking, like, me and some of my friends had been talking about like old like vintage jerseys that we loved.
Oh, yes.
And then we got on the topic of like old baseball jerseys.
Yes.
And originally it was going to be like one of those like mint blue, like the Cardinals jerseys that used to be like the big mint blue, and but then we decided on the tan because that was a little bit more with the branding. But the whole like we're thinking about doing pennants next year with that
I like
logo on it.
Yep.
Just kind of diversifying the merch. We got pins and stuff this year, so just kind of adding on to that. But yeah, the branding has always been super cool. I'm trying to think of Blythe Colvin was the one who actually thought of the Three Goose idea.
Okay.
And she was, nice enough to let us use that for the graphics. And but so far Andy has been kind of doing everything for the festival. Blythe just kind of had that idea. And the contours, actually, like all that line and stuff. Yeah. That actually comes from a topographical map of Rochester. So that's like a cool little cool little insight that we had. And Andy is, a visionary, so he just kind of thinks of that stuff. And so that's been like one of the cool things. Yeah.
What are you listening to right now? We'll go around. What are you listening to?
Okay, so I just went and saw Fay Webster at 7th Street Entry last night. She's like a really chill, like folksy kind of artist, but she's also this super great creative. She went to Belmont for a year before she dropped out the college that I'm at right now. And so I am friends with friends, but she is I was really impressed with her. She was really great. It's like John Mayer like kind of stuff, like super chill. But it also has like a slide guitar element to it too. She like utilizes that a lot. She's from Atlanta. She runs with like the rap scene there, which is kind of cool. 'Cause she's like this very small white girl and does like a bunch of the photography for like Lil Yachty and like Migos and that kind of stuff. So she's super
And she's
cool.
playing music on the side.
And she's playing music on the side, and she just like casually like was playing Bonnaroo this past weekend and came to 7th Street. So yeah, she's one to look out for sure.
That's awesome. Josh, what are you listening to?
I listen to 96.5 in my car.
Yeah.
And then when I'm at home, I'm usually editing videos, and I listen to Soundstripe. That's where I get my my music from.
Is it like
I've never heard of
Spotify?
Soundstripe.
Yeah, what is it?
It's basically a website with a bunch of music on. I think it's like a yearly subscription, but you can use it to get copyright-free music
Oh, nice.
to put on all your videos and stuff like that.
Sweet.
So that's why you're
So I
listening
listen to a lot of that.
And then you're like, I need that
all
for
the time.
video.
And this
This
and
is a
this.
good video.
Like I'll just like hit the playlist. Like, yep, that's a good sound. We're gonna
Yeah.
use that in the video.
Yeah. That's cool.
Good. I'm still stuck on Luke Combs. I just love it.
Yeah.
He's good. And I just heard this on the radio this morning. He's the first since Johnny Cash to have 5 hits on the, I don't know if it's a country playlist or whatever
Country
playlist.
radio.
5 at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And when they said that this morning on the radio, I was like, that guy is really that good. Like, guy is good.
Yeah.
So I've been listening a lot to him. And then I listen to a Christian hip hop when I'm working out. It's called Rapzilla. I've said this before, but I think it's maybe produced in Nashville or somewhere else, but there's a lot of artists from Nashville.
Nashville's a big Christian music hub. For
yeah.
Sure.
And I don't think people often relate Nashville to that, you know?
Mostly think of it as country. But
And it's just like the music hub now of the world, honestly, right?
Yeah, it's growing a lot. Yeah, a lot of my friends are doing some really cool things in Nashville too. Yeah, it's
That's
cool
awesome.
to see.
Are you going to move back to Rochester, Dylan? Ever?
I don't know. I'm gonna kind of see where everything takes me. Hopefully I'll just be able to. I graduate this December, so hopefully, I'll either end up back here and go on the road and try to get something going there, like maybe tour managing, running merch, something like that, just to get out. Or some of my friends have been trying to get me to move to LA, but I'm not sure how feasible that is right now. We'll see what kind of job I can get. But yeah, so everything's up in the air, and that's just how it's going to be for the rest of my life. It's kind of the fact of the matter.
And what are you going to school for?
Music business.
Okay.
So it's a bachelor's in business administration with an emphasis in like the music industry. So I take all the business courses, but I also take like copyright law, and I have a production emphasis, so I take all the audio engineering classes as well. So it's been a very good, like, well-rounded degree. Appreciated my time there.
Somewhat. What did they say?
Rosie said, "No, LA. Stay in the Midwest. Midwest is the new LA."
Yeah, yeah. No, I mean that's what we're trying to make it. You
Yep.
know, yeah. And so like one of the things I tell people, I'm like, as of right now, like, if I'm gonna bring it back, I'm always gonna bring it back here. Like I have no doubt about it that Minnesota music is like my passion.
Yeah.
But sometimes you have to like get out and make those connections for people to really start paying attention. So.
It's funny because my mind just went to Rochester, New York. Like all of a sudden you're like,
Yeah.
oh guys, I forgot to tell you it's in New York this year.
We're doing Rochester in New York, Rochester in LA. Yeah, it's going global.
Let's see here. Awesome.
How long have we been?
38 minutes. That's
Sweet.
what we shoot for. We shoot for that 40-minute mark.
Awesome.
Dylan, if you had to give any advice to someone's gonna cry over here. Bree Colvin is gonna cry over here.
You can't move.
If you had to give any advice to just musicians that are sitting in high school right now in Rochester, and they're just, they're busting at the seams, or they're maybe not, maybe they're a little depressed, or like, I don't know what the heck to do. What would be some advice that you'd give to musicians here in the community?
Start at an open mic. and then find people to play in a band with. My first band was in 7th grade, so like it can be done, and it's gonna be bad at first. It's gonna be really bad at first, but then it's gonna get better, and then it's gonna keep getting better. So I think like you can't be too hard on yourself, and you can't expect it to be good right out of the gate. We never expected that with Rochester, and now it's finally gotten to the point where I feel like it's getting good, you know?
Yeah.
So like I think that's the one thing. It's just like you got to keep working on your craft, and if you're really passionate about it, you know, you got to find a way, and that's all you can do.
Yes. That's it. That's Offices at China Hall podcast with the founder of Rochester.
There we go.
Not the fest, the official Rochester.
Rochester. Yeah.
Next year is number 5.
Number 5.
Do you know the dates yet, or is it still completely up in the air?
No, but we will have to do some kind of join the flock thing, because that'll be Rochester V, and like so we're gonna have to do some branding with that. But yeah, thank you guys for having me on. This has been really fun.
If people want to learn more about your event or connect with you, where can they go? Yeah,
so all of our Facebook, Twitter, Instagram is at Rochester Fest, and then our website is rochesterfestival.com.
There you have it. Thanks for joining. Thanks for asking questions. We'll see you on the next podcast.
All right. Thanks.